during the same time that Liefeld was doing X-Force and Lee was doing. I mean, he was doing Uncanny. Silvestri was doing Uncanny when these guys were doing regular X-Men and X-Force, and looking at the art on the Eternals and then reminded me to go back and look at some of his art on Uncanny. I was like, oh my God, how did I not appreciate this so much now, back then? I remember thinking back then, oh, this kind of art's not quite Jim Lee. I don't know if I like it. And now I love it. Now I look back and I'm like, that was great X-Men art, and I just couldn't appreciate it. I was too young.
I mean, tastes change. I mean, I think there's things that we hold on to that we love from when we were kids, but there's also I remember being, I don't know, it must have been early high school or something, going into a comic shop and seeing copies of Blood, A Tale by John J. Muth and James DeMatteis and stuff, and just thinking it was like the ugliest thing I'd ever seen before. It was brown and muddy and just awful. And then somewhere along the line, I kept going back to that book. I kept thinking about that book, and I'm just like, okay, it kept appearing in my and finally I sat down and I read it, and I love it. And I love John J. Muth's work now, and I love that kind of thing, that painted artwork. I mean, it was the same with Kirby. I didn't develop a Kirby appreciation until later on in life. I just couldn't. I don't know. So we do evolve, and we do kind of grow with things, and you do later on notice things. Like John Romita Jr. The first thing
Yeah,
John
that's
Romita
right.
Jr.
I said Mark Silvestri. I meant John Romita
Yeah.
Jr.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that grabbed me from him was personally was the Daredevil Man Without Fear miniseries that he did. Yeah. I read that and I was like, with Frank Miller, I read that and I was just like, this is fabulous. I mean, it's Batman Year One with Daredevil, but that's great. And I love how he like everybody's all stocky and bulky.
Yeah.
But I dig it.
I had commented on that when we had been talking about. I recommended Daredevil, The Man Without Fear, on a previous show, and I had mentioned that at the time, I actually didn't really appreciate that John Romita Jr. drew that. I actually thought it was Frank Miller that drew it, because if you look sometimes at Frank Miller's art, like for say on Dark Knight Returns, and then you look at John Romita Jr.'s, it's similar in some respects. Everybody has very square jaws, just very square, very bulky, very, I don't know, masculine looking, and very dynamic and powerful, I feel.
Like the entire world is populated by Arnold Schwarzeneggers.
Yeah.
You can definitely draw a line from Frank Miller to John Romita Jr., but you guys are missing out. I know Andy isn't, because I made him read it. But the best John Romita Jr. is his run with Ann Nesenti. It takes place around the time of the Acts of Vengeance. And you have Karnak and Gorgon is the guy.
Yeah.
And they fight Ultron, and there's all sorts of craziness, and then Daredevil goes through hell.
Yes.
It's the best, but it's inked by Al Williamson.
Right.
And for my money, John Romita Jr. art has never looked better than it has in that arc, when that was like right where he came full circle and became a great artist.